I've been a bus driver. I've driven lorries.
Paul is 57 and lives in Worsen-super-Mare.
I even
This morning he went
Okay, so he's 57, living in Worsen-super-Mare. He's been a bus driver, he's driven lorries, so he's been in the blue-collar line of work. Okay.
to the local food bank in desperation.
Today I picked up these cans.
So you've got what? Baked beans, soup.
That's from the food bank, you didn't buy
Tomato
that.
soup.
Chopped tomatoes are back there as well.
He's had no money for days, and what little food he's had to ration to one meal a day.
Have you been hungry,
I've
Paul?
been starving. I've been really hungry the last 3 days.
So what did you eat yesterday?
I had fish fingers and beans.
What else did you have?
That's it. That's all I had was fish fingers and beans for me evening meal.
What about lunch?
No. I just fill up on tea.
Wow, you hear that? You hear that? That's what happens, guys.
He lives alone, and in this the flat's
He
only
lives alone. That's a key thing. As an old man, you can't afford to be old broke and have nobody there to help you. Being an old broke man, lonely old broke man, that's a recipe for disaster.
other room keeps the lights off as much as possible.
You can't even afford to put the lights on.
Vehicle repair diplomas adorn mostly bare walls from a career ended prematurely by ill health.
You hear that? Prematurely by ill health. That's why I tell you, don't do these blue-collar jobs. These blue-collar jobs, man, they don't pay enough for you to retire, so that this is how you end up. Blue-collar jobs where you're supposed to really retire at 50. But because you can't retire at 50 nowadays, these jobs are not worth doing, man. I mean, they've never really been worth it, but at least back then, if you make it to 50, you can retire. But you get an injury, you're finished.
I think I just get scared of going out and seeing other people living their lives. You know, I kind of walk past a pub and everybody's sat outside at lunchtime having a drink. I don't drink, but it's the fact that how can you afford that? That was for September.
Paul receives £843 a month on universal credit. He's due to get more on health grounds, but right now he's reeling from a recent hike in rent, now costing £620 a month, leaving him after...
I mean, that's not really expensive, but then, you know, you're talking about a one room, you know, there's not much space there anyway, but the truth is that, you know, you can't just afford to be living off of these government is giving you pittance. I mean, let's face it, the government's always going to give you pittance. Even when they introduce UBI, it's still going to be a pittance. It's always going to be a pittance. The government is not trying to make you live abundantly, and at the end of the day, I mean, you're not working, so I mean, what you're going to do, you're going to say that you're hurt, you're injured, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, well, you got to find a way. Your mind works, right? But this is what happens when you get to be an old man, that you're so set in your ways. You're not ready to start a new career or a business or whatever. You're just gonna live in poverty. That's how a lot of people, because they ain't got the fight in them to get themselves up and get going again.
paying bills and insurance with...
On average, £30 for the month. That's
He's got £30 a month to live off.
for food, washing, because I have to use a laundrette to do my washing.
Look at this dude's face. He's a Finnish guy. When you look at this dude's face, you look into his eyes, you can tell he's a Finnish guy. There's no disputing, there's no debating it. He's done, he's finished. He's gonna die like this. He's gonna die a premature death as a broke, lonely, miserable old man. And that's the reality. And that might sound harsh, but I'm not trying to make fun of the guy. But I'm here to tell you guys the truth. This is what happens to certain people. He ain't got nobody. Nobody cares about the broke, lonely old man down the corner. Nobody cares about him. They just view him as let the guy die on the streets, even if he's homeless, which a lot of guys do end up homeless. They don't care. The government don't see you as a priority either. They're looking to prioritize if you're with young children, that's who they're looking to prioritize.
And
So-
that's expensive. No.
So £30.
Yeah. I have started washing in the sink.
The amount you've got in your bank account
Washing in the sink, old school. That's what they do in third world countries.
currently.
11 pence.
What? He said he got 11 pence in his bank account. 11 pence, not even 11 pounds.
And that's it.
It's finished, man.
Today's
it's finished.
report by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation estimates the number of people experiencing destitution in the UK has more than doubled in the last 5 years.
Of course.
Such
That doesn't
severe
surprise
hardship,
me.
they say, is no longer a rare occurrence.
Do you want some extra milk, love?
Oh, yes, please, yes.
Got loads of milk.
Gareth, who's 55, finds himself at the same food bank as Paul. A welder fabricator until he
Same
says a
food
spinal issue affecting his hands made that too difficult.
You see that? A welder fabricator, a spinal issue. And it happens a lot. It happens a lot. You break down your body for these jobs and you end up broke. This is why I'm so strongly against these blue-collar jobs. This is exactly why I'm so strongly against them. It doesn't work in today's modern world. You can't work for these physical labor jobs for that long. You're not supposed to be working those jobs after 50. But because they don't pay enough, you can't retire at 50, so you're finished. If you get injured.
I need a new pair of boots, yeah? I'll struggle to buy
Look at his shoes. I mean, this dude is broke as a joke.
a postcard with a pair of boots on it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I can't afford anything, you know? Sometimes I have to share a can of tuna with a cat because we're that skin.
Wow, look at his nails. He's sharing food with the cats. Look at his nail. This guy ain't even showering,
You get
bro.
to a stage where you just think, what's the point? You know,
This
this
dude is
is not
filthy.
living, this is not even surviving. Everything I have,
He's a filthy old man. You think he's treated well in society? You
oh
know?
dear, in the last year,
He's
since I've
seen
been
as a
signed off, it's gone,
joke.
really.
His application for disability benefits, he says, is proving long and arduous. A common
Of course, they ain't just trying to give you money like that.
theme, says today's report.
Do you like salami?
Another, as this food bank tells us, is that many simply can't afford essential items with the universal credit income they get.
Universal credit is another pittance.
Sometimes we actually counted, and in a session where we did 32 parcels, 30 people asked for toilet paper. Some people
You know, what happened to these guys' children? Like, these guys are like 50, 60 years old. I mean, what happened to their kids? They abandoned them? I mean, I want to see a documentary following these guys, a long-form documentary, to see actually how you end up like that. Because, I mean, have these guys ever been married? Have they had kids? I mean, why are they all alone and broke as a joke? I mean, how do you let yourself end up like that? But that's why, you know, you got to manage your money. A lot of these guys, they just don't know what they're doing. They're not naturally intelligent guys. You can tell by the way that they speak. And that's why you end up in these blue collar jobs. I mean, let's be honest.
But it's the first thing that, when you say, you know, just ask them for their voucher number and their name, and the first thing they say is, I need toilet paper.
Wow, like the Soviet Union, they're going to be wiping themselves with newspaper.
More than anything else.
People are broke as a joke in
And
the
it's
UK,
just-
man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
People think the UK is a rich country.
It is, says today's report, a social security system now so full of holes that it falls to charities to intervene, but adds
Yeah, the charities and the food banks are basically taking place of the government.
the task is too great for them. Its finding of a sharp rise in destitute migrant households chimes with what Bristol's Borderlands charity has seen.
you know, migrants are broke too.
There's
I mean,
barely a spare
migrants ain't
seat
got
at
no
this,
money.
their weekly lunch for
Some of them do make money over time, but most migrants come to the country broke. And the thing is, I mean, they think that the UK is a rich country. They're barking up the wrong tree.
refugees and asylum seekers. While the numbers queuing for a handout of fruit and veg grow ever
Yeah,
larger.
it's always hands out. It's always handouts in Benefits Britain, isn't it? It's always handouts. I mean,
Thank you very much.
Are people
everybody's wanting a handout.
asking you for more
Nobody wants to work 7 days a week.
food, more than you can give them?
Absolutely.
I think with the food we give every week, we cannot cover a week for a family, and every week there is people asking for different items we just can't provide.
Is there always a big queue like
There's too much demand on these people to provide. Like, why you got charities and providing? Like, people need to start pulling their weight at the end of the day. Like, there's too few people pulling their weight. That's the problem here.
this?
Yes, absolutely. Like, it's growing every week.
Warnings grow around the impact destitution can have, particularly on children. With as many as 1 million in the UK affected last year, so claims today's report.
1 million children living in destitution, that's a lot.
Back in Weston-super-Mare, we meet Jasmine, a single parent to Henry.
Good boy.
Of course, you're single mothers. You can't have one of these, clips without a single mother in
She's
there.
in paid work, a part-time cleaner and receptionist training to be a counsellor. She receives
Part-time cleaner, that's not enough money.
universal credit, but
That's not enough money to take care of a young boy.
has debt, has needed the
By
food
yourself.
bank, and has skipped meals, she says, so Henry has enough.
Skipping meals to feed your son.
She is only just managing to avoid what the Joseph Rowntree Foundation would define as destitution.
Cheese, yeah. I now know these next 2 months are going to be really hard because at the moment I can only just afford my gas and electric. And I know my gas is now about to triple. I think last winter, so January time, it was -2. It was freezing. Like, I had him wrapped in everything, and my gas cut off.
Can't even afford to put the heating on you. People are broke as a joke, man.
I'd gone over the emergency credit.
How are you feeling generally at the moment, in all honesty?
I mean, there's good days and bad days. I feel at the moment guilty and frustrated because it's his birthday on the weekend and I haven't been able to afford to get him anything. I've only just covered the bills this month. My mum has
That kid is growing up deprived, man. He's gonna understand
to
deprivation.
do a food shop for me last week. So I just don't feel good as a person. I just feel like I'm not doing enough, even though I probably actually am.
Turning the tide on destitution, said the charity
Who's washing up in the
behind
sink,
today's
man.
report, is an urgent moral mission.
The circumstances that you find yourself in would, in line with this report, characterise you as destitute.
Yes. It's not a word that I've ever used in my life. Never thought I'd have to use it. But that's scary. To think that I am destitute.
He ain't got no fight in him. He ain't got no solutions. I mean, and this is what I spoke about when I was talking about ending up a broken, lonely, miserable old man. Because when you get to this age, man, we can all talk about you're finished, but when you get to this age, you really are finished. I mean, who's gonna hire him? He ain't even got the attitude to be hired. I mean, he's a broken. An employer will look at his face and say, "I can tell you're a finished man." Certain men you can just look at and you can tell you're finished. You're finished. You're a broken man. I can't do anything for you. And when you look at this guy, you can see the writings on the wall for him. He's finished. He's gonna die like this.
Even though I've tried not to be.
That's a fake smile. Ain't nothing to be smiling about. Anyway, that's the video, guys. Let's get into these comments. Let's get into a few of these comments. Okay, let's pick out some of these comments. So I grew up in the UK during the 40s and 50s, the son of a not very well-off working class family, together with my older sister. Although we had little money, we never went out without a meal. Yet I don't ever recall of hearing food banks in those days. Don't think they existed. Society is supposed to progress, not go backwards. That's something sadly wrong when people can't afford to put food on the table. Yeah, I mean, people can't afford to put food on the table. That's definitely true. People can't afford to put food on the table. Right? And it has to be that way. And it's going to get worse so that they can push their UBI scheme. But the UBI scheme isn't going to save anybody. it's just going to prevent you from basically starving to death, man. It's going to prevent you from eating rotten meat like they do in Venezuela. I don't know if they still do that, but they were doing it. They were eating rotten meat, man. That's not because the situation there was so bad. Hearing Paul say he was starving broke my heart. I cried. I mean, you got to get a backbone if you cry. Tin food, fish fingers will not help his health either. I know the feeling of walking past people at a restaurant being able to afford a meal when I couldn't. This is heartbreaking to watch. You know, having left the UK 30 years ago, it breaks my heart to see how we're treating people often disabled through their work. It's no better than the Victorian era, to be honest, and embarrassing to the nation. It's not as bad as the Victorian era. That's a big exaggeration. Okay, as a Mexican national growing up always in poverty, I'm familiar with all this. Me and my siblings are grown-ups, but we always thought of the UK and the USA as rich countries where everybody had a nice life. Yet that's the problem with a lot of migrants. They believe this myth that people in the Western world are living great lives, when in the reality of the situation is there's probably a higher percentage of people in countries like Mexico living great lives. Now, there might be more poverty in Mexico, but if you look at the percentage of people in those countries that live great lives, I'm pretty sure it's higher in those countries than it is in the Western world. But just that those countries have more poverty. Um, but people in the West ain't living nice lives as this person thought. It seems poverty and inequality are everywhere, not just in underdeveloped countries. It's just amazing to learn that some people in the UK have worse living conditions than people in Mexico. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all. The UK ain't this great nation that people try to make it out to be. See if there's any more comments that I can read. Felt bad for the bus driver guy, and I ain't gonna read that. I'm almost 80 without mobility. I'm gonna read that either. There is tremendous pain in his eyes when he said only £30 were left over to spend on food. I hope his life improves. The UK must stop wasting money on useless roads. His life ain't gonna improve, man. He's a finished man. He's gonna die. He may already be dead. I mean, who knows? He may already be dead. I mean, he's gonna die. I mean, he's finished. I mean, we all know that he's finished. Why do people try and pretend and try to make it seem like he ain't finished? Come on, you know he's finished. Stop pretending that he ain't finished, man. I'm not the type of guy to sit here and tell people that that they can improve their situation.